Once upon... No, that's not how the story went. Once upon a time, Lord, there were two adventurers, escaping their own people, only to get trapped in another time with another civilization, unlike their own. And soon they would find that their adventure would take them an awful long way away. An adventure of a lifetime, you might say. An adventure in time and space. Well, come along. Let's find out the long way round. Our story begins with an extraordinary young lady and her two teachers, Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright. The young girl's name is Susan Foreman. Susan goes to Coal Hill School, but she seems to have an amazing intelligence beyond the people of 1963. And so, her two teachers begin to investigate, as they believe her knowledge is way beyond anything, and that her understanding, although in their case wrong, is intriguing as she begins to question the decimal system and science itself. The pair follow her home until they arrive at 76 Trotter's Lane. Well, the confusing part to the pair of them is that they believed that 76 Trotter's Lane was a home. Well, at least that's what they were led to believe by Susan. Ian is all uneasy about the whole thing. He mentions that maybe they should just go home, call it a night, and then, out at the corner of their eye, they spot Susan going into the junkyard. A mild curiosity of a place. Abandoned, empty, and of all things, desolate. The pair stop squabbling and decide to follow Susan in, but in doing so they seem to lose her halfway through their tracks, and instead find themselves across a peculiar looking stranger in mad looking clothes. The man steps out from behind the police box whilst the two gaze around the abandoned junkyard. Oh, what brings you in here? He says to them, estranged to why they are there. We're looking for one of our students. Students? In here, he says, beguiled by exactly their statements. And you think she would be in here? In a junkyard? Well, we followed her, says Ian, to the man in the junkyard. Here, to this junkyard? No. All of a sudden, they hear the sound of machinery clunking around in the background, and a strange but familiar voice, the voice of Susan Foreman. The doctor tells them it's nothing, they didn't hear anything, but then they hear the voice again, but this time scream grandfather. Close the door, my child, the doctor says to Susan. But by that point, it's far too late. The two teachers barge in through the doors, entering the police box, only to discover a room bigger on the inside. Their breath is taken away. They start murmuring, Susan, you live here? And she replies, yes, this is her grandfather's and hers home. Her grandfather begins natter on about the fact that they would never understand the technology and how the TARDIS exists within its own dimension. And as Ian slowly starts to piece it together, he finds himself even more speechless. A thing that looks like a police box standing in a junkyard. It can go anywhere in time and space. Quite right, says the Doctor, before the group get into an even bigger argument, and the Doctor decides to close the doors. I'm sorry, my dear, but they've seen too much. They'll go to the authorities. They'll tell people of us. We can't have that now, can we? The Doctor says, as he pulls the lever and slams the door shut. The two teachers are thrown across the room as the TARDIS, as Susan has taken from the initials time and relative dimension in time and space, begins to take flight, the middle of the console, flying up and down in a motion, and begins to evaporate and reappear in another place. The TARDIS lands itself on a barren wasteland in the middle of a desert, only to be discovered by a caveman from a tribe called Gum. The tribe of Gum are a struggling tribe in the time of the early period of history. They are debating over the philosophy of fire and eating and harvesting things. And so the group find themselves trapped in a new place, in another time, surrounded by people unlike anything they ever could imagine. One of the tribe members mentions that his father was a fire maker, and that because his father could create fire, he could create fire. For most of this story, the two teachers deny that time has changed and that they've gone back in time as a whole. The Doctor constantly has to reassure them that this has happened and constantly has to try and slam down any special effects or any drug, adrenaline, or anything that the teachers may come up with to explain what's really happened. But going back to the tribe breaks out into an argument, claiming that they need fire to survive. An old woman in the tribe complains to one of the elders, coming up in the tribe, and explains to them, yes, your father made fire, but they killed him for it. Basically saying that fire is a bad omen within the tribe. Whilst out on a walk, one of the tribe comes across the Doctor, smoking a pipe on the top of a hill. So they knock the Doctor out and take him back to their cave. You will make fire. You will teach us to make fire, they say to him. Yes, my dear boy. But will you let me and my friends go? The Doctor says to one of the tribe members, in hopes that he can win him over and eventually go home with his friends. After some persuasion, the Doctor eventually helps the tribe create fire. In doing so, the teachers and Susan and himself find themselves in a learnable moment. This is in the Cave of Skulls. The Cave of Skulls is a barren place, which seems to be the remains of either the previous tribe or a tribe that has died out. After learning how to make fire, the leader of the tribe decides he wants to imprison the Doctor and his friends. The Doctor, very angry at this prospect, decides to rebel. In doing so, he ends up in very bad quarrels with the tribe leader and has to do his best to try and find a way out of this predicament. In doing so, the pair find themselves running off into the woods to get away. Meanwhile, the tribe leader and the one who said he could make fire are both in a fort, ending in a battle where one of them is killed. The Doctor and his friends return to the Tardis unscathed, but remembering the bad side of history and how one action can affect a whole tribe. The Doctor points out that in the tribe discovering fire, the tribe does not survive for very long. So the old woman, in fact, was right, that fire became a curse, as the human body doesn't just rely on fire to live, but on food and on clothing. And due to this, disease would soon infect the tribe. So, an unearthly child. What is my thoughts on the story? Well, it's a great introduction to Doctor Who in general. It's a great written story with a lot of basis behind a character who's very mysterious, very interesting. And to be fair, as a groundwork for Doctor Who in general, I can see why it was very popular. An old figure and his granddaughter. Two people who are unlike anyone else on Earth, cut off from their homeworld, lost to time itself, and overall, their arc as the story progresses through this series, as we will get into, is very interesting. How their dynamic is shifted as the stories go on. In this basis, for this reason, I give An Unearthly Child a 10 out of 10. Thank you everyone for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in another Doctor Who review. Until then, stay beautiful, and Alonzi.